Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Larson. Today I'm going to be talking about my PTSD, which is something that I suffer from. So if you're not interested in listening to that, then keep scrolling on Instagram. If you want to learn something new, maybe open your mind to a mental illness that you don't know much about, then stick around. I put out my first YouTube video in August explaining my journey so far with PTSD, but it has been so long since then. Now it's January and I've come through so much more with the illness. It was kind of hard to talk about it back then because I was really in the midst of it, but now I'm a little bit farther out. I'm definitely recovering from it, so it's just a little bit easier to talk about my symptoms and kind of more specifics about what I have been going through. Just a little disclaimer, this video is all about my experience with PTSD. I know that there are so many different people in the world, there are so many different bodies and physiological stuff going on, and this is just me, this is my experience, this is what I have experienced. If you've experienced something different, then that's your story. I know that people have it way worse than me, and I know there are people that have it more mild than I do. So this is just me sharing my experience. So please don't take this as a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. I guess I realized something was wrong about a year ago. I got back from Christmas vacation, which was an awesome time, and I had no reason to be sad. I had been working as an EMT on the ambulance for about a year at that point, and my schedule just got switched at the beginning of the year. So I started working night shift, which was especially hard. I don't know how many people watching this video work a night shift, but nurses, doctors, whoever you are, EMTs, paramedics that do that, you're amazing, you're awesome. It's like the hardest thing in the world. It flips your life upside down. I was working from 2:15 in the afternoon until 4:15 in the morning. There were 14-hour shifts. So I didn't get home till like 5 a.m. and I just would sleep till like noon every day. And I was also working Saturday, Sunday, and Tuesdays. So I was working the whole weekend, all through the night. So it was just really hard schedule to adjust to your life and just eating and seeing people and being awake during day hours. It started taking a toll on me, and I just started being really sad. I just cried a lot all the time, and like sometimes that's normal. Sometimes we get sad and we cry and we don't know why, but it was just more so than anything normal. I was just really sad, crying really hard for no apparent reason. So my boyfriend helped me out, and he was like, I think you need to go talk to somebody. I've been to therapy in the past, so I was totally willing to try it again. So I went in and I saw a doctor, just like a family medicine doctor, and he had me start seeing the therapist that worked at the doctor's office. So I saw her a few times and just kind of explained my life to her, just told her what was going on in my life, what I did. And at the time, I loved my job. The entire time I worked as an EMT, I loved it. I love the job. I love medicine. I love patient care. I love the adrenaline rush and the craziness. Like, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I mean, it is the coolest thing ever. Driving an ambulance and saving people's lives and staying up till 4 in the morning to be a hometown hero is what it really did feel like. Most people don't look at me and think that I saved people's lives and that I drove ambulances at 4 a.m. and all the crazy stuff I did, but I did, and I loved feeling so strong and powerful and knowing that I could do those things. So I loved the job. I always loved it. I never disliked it. And that was one of the hardest parts. So in explaining my life to Grace, the only real symptom of PTSD I had at the time that I was able to express was the nightmares I was having. So I started having more and more nightmares of really bad things happening to people I loved. I had a lot of dreams about cardiac arrest, which, if you're not a medical person, that just means your heart stopped, you died. So that was a frequent call we got on the ambulance. Obviously someone's heart stops, they call 911, and we have to respond to it. and you know, it would pop up on our dispatch screen and all red. It was like the only one that was all red and just really intense. Somebody died, like you knew it wasn't gonna be a bullshit call, someone with a stomach ache, which happens a lot too. You knew this was real and somebody had died and you were being called to action. So it was just always a really intense moment getting called to the scene of a cardiac arrest. So I was having nightmares that my mom went into cardiac arrest and I had to respond and save her. I had one about my friend going into cardiac arrest and I had to drive in the ambulance and respond and save her. I had a few gunshot victims, so I had dreams about myself getting shot a lot. Paul and I were together and we got shot from the back. Both of us got shot at the same time, and I just remember falling down on top of him and just knowing like there was no one there to help us. There was no one who was gonna call 911 for us. We were just dying together. And it was just so realistic, and as you can imagine, that's terrifying to wake up from. I've always had really vivid dreams my whole life, so those dreams were just something really intense, and you know, I figured it's because I respond to calls like this, that's why I'm having dreams like this. Oh, I told Grace about the dreams. Something she said to me was, if your friend was telling you all these things and all these emotions they were having about this job, would you tell them to keep the job? And I was like, no, I guess not. And that really put it into perspective for me. It was like, I was doing this job that I love so much and was so great and so rewarding and helped so many people, but it was affecting me in the end, and I was really mentally stuck and having trouble getting my emotions out about it. A few months of talking with my therapist, I decided that it was best for me to quit my job as an EMT. So after about a year, couple months change, I quit. And honestly, quitting was the hardest thing, and it also sparked the worst of my PTSD. The worst of my symptoms didn't come until I left the job. And the way it's been explained to me is that I had repressed all these emotions, all these anxieties and fears about what could happen, because the environment that I was in was sitting on an ambulance for 14 hours, just waiting, like it was hurry up and wait kind of mentality. You'd just sit there and you would wait for your dispatch, for your screen to blink and for the noises to go off and for someone to be in trouble, and you were called to action, you had to go. So you're just sitting there waiting, and then as soon as the light goes off, you're heightened up to this state. Your adrenaline starts pumping, your fight or flight response is active, and you're up here, you're ready to go, ready to save that life. And I never cried or was scared or fearful like during the call. You know, there's a dead person laying in front of you. You are there to do your job, saving their life, and that's all you're thinking about. You're not thinking about how scared you are or what this truly is that's happening. You're just doing your job and getting it done. And as soon as you get that person to the hospital and get them to definitive care, you leave them and you just go and wait for the next thing to happen. And you don't really sit there and think about what happened and you know, get upset or feel too much, because you know you're just gonna have to do it again. Plain and simple, it was my job. So I eventually got referred to a therapist that specialized in PTSD in EMTs and paramedics, and she dealt with a lot of people like me. And so she was the one that explained to me that for a year I had been in this heightened awareness state, just ready to go, ready to be called to action, and I never had time to relax. I was just always up here. And so now, a few months after quitting the job, I had come back down to normal reality, and it kind of pushed me down below normal because I was heightened for so long that now I was just feeling kind of depressed because these kind of crazy things weren't happening to me. But whenever I did encounter a stressful event or a loud sound or a siren, something like that, that my body still had the muscle memory of, oh, fight or flight, we have to go, help, we are needed. My body would just jump back up to here, even if it was just something small, like I was late for work or I forgot something little stressful event in normal life that people deal with. My body would bring me back up here, and it was really stressful. It was somebody's dying, life or death situation, and that's how I felt. That's how stress was presented to me. So you can imagine how living like that would be kind of difficult. So the symptoms I started experiencing post my job as an EMT, my startle response was so high, which means basically if I hear a loud sound or a loud noise, somebody drops something or someone surprises me, just something happens suddenly, I would get exponentially more scared than the normal person should. I, really, really freak out at little things. And I couldn't control it. That was just the way my body was reacting. Sirens were the biggest thing, obviously, because I listened to sirens and drove around with sirens, and sirens were symbolic of something bad happening, me being called to action, my fight or flight response. My body remembered all that. So living in the city where I do, very, very close, I'm less than 2 miles from 3 major hospitals around me where I went on the ambulance. So I hear sirens all the time in my apartment where I live and around where I live. So that has been the hardest thing to deal with is, figuring out how to trick my body kind of into desensitization, trick my body into, the way it used to be, that a siren is something you're gonna hear, it's an everyday occurrence where I live, and it does not mean that I'm called to action. It doesn't mean that I need to go do anything. I need to learn how to just hear them without it crippling my day. Another symptom that I did not get until after I quit my job was flashbacks. So all the repressed memories of all of the calls I had gone on. And to put it in perspective, I worked a 14-hour shift, and on a busy day, you could get 14 or 15 calls, meaning I responded to 14 or 15 people and took them to the hospitals. On a slow day, maybe 6. So every day responding to like 10 people, having 10 scenes in my head, 10 memories of something traumatic happening, an emergency. People are calling 911 for an emergency, and I'm one of 2 people showing up on the ambulance and helping them. So you can imagine there are so many memories in my head, and you can't possibly think about them all as they're happening that quickly, and you're in the middle of a work week. So they were repressed in my mind. After my job, whenever I would get stressed, I would start to have flashbacks. And it's just so crazy because they just come into your mind like something you haven't thought about in a year. A call that I wouldn't have thought about since it happened would just pop back in my mind, and I would see the person, I would see their face, and I would be in the scene again, and my body would jump back up to here. Fight or flight, I've got to save this person. Even though that's not really happening, I'm just having a memory, but my body is physiologically responding to that. Flashbacks are really hard because when one comes, another one comes, and another one comes, and another one comes, and they're really hard to control. Basically, stressful situations of any kind would trigger flashbacks for me. So there was one night when my stomach was hurting because I had eaten some like gross fried food or something, and I was just laying in bed and my stomach hurt, and I was just not feeling good, couldn't sleep. And then that event triggered flashbacks to me. And I started having all of these flashbacks, and I started to feel my heart racing and breathing heavier and heavier. I'm physiologically responding to these memories, thinking that I'm really there, and full-blown panic attack. That's one of the only times that has really happened to me, but it was because my stomach hurt. So you can imagine how frustrating it is to have that kind of response to everything stressful that could happen, even if it's so minuscule. The most minor stressful event can trigger you to go back into this state of mind. But luckily that night I was able to just go outside, get some air, and use a few of the coping mechanisms that my therapist had taught me. Thank God I was in therapy at that time, and I had those mechanisms to calm myself down, and get to sleep and get over that attack. So not only did stressful events trigger flashbacks for me, but basically anything that possibly reminded me of a call that I had been on would trigger flashbacks for that call, or maybe others would come along too. So driving around has been really hard for me because where I live is where I worked on the ambulance. So essentially every single street in this county I have driven on and had a call on in the ambulance. So driving around post working on the ambulance, I would see a location and think about the call I had there. Or I see this nursing home. Oh, I remember a call I had here. Oh, there was a car accident on this road. Highways were terrible because there's so many car accidents on highways. So just driving on highways, I was constantly thinking about the things I'd seen. Have you ever like walked outside and thought, oh, it smells like where I lived in Indiana or something like that? Like a smell can trigger memories. Sight, smell, touch, taste, anything that my hyper-aware brain was reminded of a call, it came right back, and then others would just come back at me too. And you cannot control it. You have to learn how to cope with it and get over it, and eventually you can kind of control slowing it down, but when they come at you, it's really hard to control the memories. So driving's definitely been the biggest thing for me, and the way I've dealt with that is just desensitization. Driving around on the same roads over and over and over. So like the first time I drove on a road after working on the ambulance, I thought about that call and it made me really anxious, and I didn't want to be there, and I was like, why am I driving on this road? Why would I do this? Blah, 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 blah. Make up all these things in my head. But then maybe the second and third time I kind of thought about the call too, but eventually the fourth, fifth, and the more times that I continued to drive on that road, I started desensitizing myself to what had happened in the past, and maybe resensitize myself to why I'm driving on the road now, what's going on now in my life. So I've kind of been able to push those memories into the past and create new ones, which makes it a lot easier for me to deal with locations. Another thing about driving is the sirens. Very, very, very often, daily, if not more than daily, I'm driving on the road and an ambulance, the same ambulance that I worked on, will come up behind me or come through the intersection, and you would think that I'd be the most prepared person for that situation, and I am. I know what to do, but it also is very triggering for me because I hear the siren and I go, oh, I'm being called to action, like I need to help. Where are they going? What are they gonna see? Like who's calling 911? Maybe I could help, like they need me. Those are the kind of thoughts that went through my head, and just started getting amped up again. Fight or flight, I was ready to go. I'm ready to help every time I hear those sirens because that was so ingrained in me. It's been a long road of teaching myself and telling myself, that's not my job. They've got it. Those two people know exactly what they're doing. They're gonna go and they're gonna help that person, and my job right now is to get out of the way and let them through. So it's been a long journey of figuring that out for myself, really talking myself down in those situations. Another thing that I think when I hear ambulances and see ambulances is I get kind of down on myself, like, oh, I can do that. Like I used to do that. Why am I not doing that? Like I need to be the one doing it, going and saving that person or whatever. And instead, I need to be telling myself, I did do that. I did save lives. I did help people. I did respond to emergencies. I did my time. I drove the ambulance. I turned on the sirens. I bussed through traffic. Like, I did really cool, crazy things to help people. And I did that. I did it for a year of my life, and that was enough for me. That was enough for my mental capacity to handle. And now it's somebody else's job, and I will let them deal with it, and I will be a law-abiding citizen and do my job of getting out of the way and letting them go by. Flashing lights are another thing that get to me sometimes, just because of the lights on the ambulance and working night shift and seeing them constantly. Even if it's not an ambulance, just flashing lights from construction on the road or a truck, something like that, sometimes will trigger me, and I'll feel my heart start to beat faster and breathing heavier, but I can calm myself down now and, you know, say, that's not an ambulance, that is a truck doing construction on the road, not my business, let them do it, keep moving on. So yeah, those are some of the things that I've been through. I'm making this video now because I am getting to the other side of this illness. I'm feeling so much better and having a lot less of those symptoms now. That's really the only reason I'm able to talk about it. I wanted to wait to make this video until, you know, I was kind of out of the chaos and could talk about it without just being depressed and sad and freaking out. 2018 was just really, really, really a hard year for me. I went through quitting the job that I loved, something I was truly passionate about and loved doing. It's rare to find a job that you love when you're 22, 23, however old I was when I started. So it was hard to give that up, but I knew that there are better things for me out there and that mentally I needed to do something a little less stressful. I learned so much about myself. I learned about what I like in medicine, how much I really do care about the patients and the relationships with them, and that's something I'm going to carry on with whatever I choose to do next, whether it's medicine or not. So I definitely learned, I proved to myself that I'm a badass. I can drive an ambulance, I can save people's lives, I can do all these crazy things that I never ever imagined that I could do. So I'm so proud of myself. I will never regret the experience. It brought so much to my life. But it also made for one of the hardest years of my life. You know, looking back, like, it sucked. Like, it still does suck sometimes. I was just really depressed. I was really sad. It takes a lot out of you. It makes you feel like you're not sane, you're not worthy, you're not a regular person, you're just kind of like this crazy person having all these irrational fears and thoughts, and no one really understands what you're going through. I wasn't able to really talk to anybody who was going through similar things. Trying to explain all of that to somebody can be really difficult, especially when you're going through it. So I felt very alone. I just felt really depressed and sad, and like my life didn't really mean anything, because after a year of saving people's lives and being a crazy badass, I just kind of came back down to earth and then had all these crazy things going on around me and just felt like I wasn't important anymore, and what I was doing with my job then just didn't really matter. It wasn't as important, and like I took a step down and all these negative feelings and thoughts. But now I know that none of that's true. It's so sad looking back on like how sad I was. If you guys watch my videos, you know how big I am on journaling, so I've journaled throughout this whole process, and reading back on the things that I've written about the way I was feeling, it just breaks my heart to read. I wrote some poems at the beginning of my experience about some calls I had run, and reading them, I'm like, damn, I'm a good writer. But I mean, they're really good. Like, I really think they're great, but like I sob reading them because they're real experiences that I went through, where people lost their lives and I witnessed it. And yeah, it's just crazy. Life is crazy. It gave me a whole new perspective on everything, like things that used to be important to me, like partying and just like being cool and having a bunch of friends and like doing crazy things, joking a little bit too much. I'm a sarcastic person, so you know, jokes are just like a big part of my life. Now having this experience, I just feel like I'm a little bit of a nicer person, because life is so precious and fragile, and I've experienced that firsthand. Things that are important to me now are my happiness and my health and my body and my friends, the people around me, their mental health and their happiness, and just making sure that people are okay, and just really reaching out a hand and really asking people if they are okay. I've been happier, I've been laughing, I've been smiling and like feeling happy and singing and doing crazy things that I do, and instead of just laying in bed and not being able to get up and like being sad and fearful and just like not wanting to do anything. So I have come so far, and it's certainly not over. Things have happened since then. I've been triggered. Over Thanksgiving I had a nightmare, and that was the first I'd had in like 8 months, but I had one, and it just reminds me that this illness isn't going to end. It's going to be something that I'm going to live with for the rest of my life probably, because there's no way I can go through every memory that I went through in that year and lay it all out and get it all out. I wish, and maybe I will one day, and I'll continue to work on it, but you know, without warning, something can trigger me and come back into my head and give me a night terror, and you know, now I know how to deal with it and cope with it and get myself back to a place where I can live out the rest of my day without crying and being sad and depressed, or thinking about that terrible thing all day. But I just also know that, you know, this isn't over for me. It's something that I'm going to continue to work on, and even if I feel happy, I might still have some of that back there, and I'm just going to keep going to therapy and trying to work it all out. And I'm just so thankful that I'm feeling better. It's just amazing to like look back at my journal entries and just see what I'm writing now, and how much hope and like faith I have now that I have a great life ahead of me, and there's things I want to do, and I have motivation again. I'm so happy that it's 2019. I'm so glad to just put 2018 behind me. It was a hard year, and I went through so many life-changing things. I'm just ready for a fresh start. Like as soon as the new year hit, I just knew like this is going to be a good year for me. Good things are coming. I'm moving across the country with my boyfriend this year. I'm so excited to do that. And I can just start to not forget this experience of working on an ambulance that I had, but, you know, make it a part of me, of the old Larson, a part of 23 and 24-year-old Larson. And I can move on this year to so many more things that I know are coming my way. Just start fresh and start without a depressed PTSD mind. It was so hard. It was so hard. Yeah, but I'm happy. I'm happy today. I'm happy now. I'm just feeling so blessed and so grateful to be here and to feel lucky for my life. There was a point in time when I didn't feel that way, and it just pains me to know that I felt that way, like my life wasn't important. And if anybody out there watching this video feels that way, I just want to encourage you to keep sticking it out. Time heals all, and that is the worst freaking part, is waiting. But just keep going and keep trying to cope. There are resources out there for you. Therapists, I mean, I didn't even have health insurance when I quit my job, and I figured it out. I got health insurance and I started seeing a therapist, and my life has changed drastically since then. So I just want to encourage you that if you are going through anything similar, or even if it's not PTSD, just anxieties, worries, heartbreak, there is more for you out there, and you just need to stick it out a little bit longer. Journal, do the things that I tell you to do, watch my videos, because I'm trying to help the world just learn how to be a little bit happier, and I promise you these things work. Like, it's worked for me. Therapy's been the biggest thing, but journaling and just talking it out for me really does work. So yeah, that's my more in-depth story. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. You can like and subscribe. I'm gonna keep coming out with videos like this and other stuff, because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just video logging my life because it's fun. It's gonna be cool to look back at this one day and to see how far I've come. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.